You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Challenge us at Wexford Insurances 0818 31 30 30.
Welcome back to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with me, Karl Fitzpatrick. I'm now joined by the County Manager, Eddie Breen. Good morning, Eddie.
Morning, Karl.
Eddie, you might start by telling me a bit about your own background firstly, please.
Well, I was appointed here in 2003, Karl, came to Wexford, my native county, and of course I was thrilled to come back and be given the opportunity to act as County Manager.
And tell me this, Eddie, what was your vision for the role as County Manager when you took up the position?
Well, Wexford, I think, had always been quite well renowned for its quality of life, and certainly the issues that I wanted to achieve were all projects that I think would enhance the quality of life for people living and coming to visit the county. Primarily the whole area of the likes of public libraries, public parks, playgrounds, civic amenities, and also, of course, to develop the town centres of our four very strong, very attractive towns.
Most of those have been achieved at this stage.
Yes, we've done a lot, certainly in the town centre areas. Gorey has its new civic centre now, opened a couple of years, very, very attractive, and I think is enhancing the town centre experience there. Wexford's Main Street has been totally renovated. Enniscorthy, Rafter Street, Irish Street, the new convent centre, all those things are happening. And as we speak, the quays in Ross are undergoing a major refurbishment. So all those projects, I think, with also the other community projects that we embarked upon, most of which have been finished now.
You're in the position 9 years at this stage. What were the major challenges that you faced into at the time when you took up the position?
Well, access to Wexford was always going to be a problem because we're out on the periphery here of the country, and I was very anxious to advance all the road projects. Now we got thankfully the Gorey bypass was finished, and we are back again on target to get the Enniscorthy and New Ross bypasses started and completed, because in my view access to the county is always going to be a priority, particularly as we have one of Ireland's leading ports in Rosslare, and getting goods to the market is crucially important. And also linking us with the capital and ensuring that industries that come here have a close access to the capital and to capital markets, I think is a crucial issue for the county. But hopefully that will be resolved now through the new stimulus package.
Commercial rates have been a serious bone of contention by business people across the county for the last number of years. Are we moving any closer to a solution in relation to this?
Well, we empathise very much with the business community. We get 20% of our income from our commercial rates, so obviously it's a crucial income stream for us. In realising that they were going through hard times, we kept the rate in the pound at the same rate as 2008. It hasn't been increased now, and I can't see it being increased again. It's something that is a national issue. There's very, very limited initiatives that the individual local authority can take here, because commercial rates are a national tax on commercial property to contribute to the provision of local services. So the amount of, whereas we were fortunate we were able to keep it without increasing rates, despite increasing demand and falling grant levels, I think that's been something that we were very, very anxious to achieve.
I do understand that you have limited powers in relation to changing the way that rates are collected and that, but you are part of an association of county managers. What have you done to lobby the government in relation to changing this inequitable system?
Well, the government a few years ago set up the Commission on Taxation, which looked at taxation generally in the country, including in commercial rates. We would have argued at the time that the rate base is too narrow and needed to be increased, broadened out beyond the commercial sector. Now, an attempt has been made at that, thankfully, now with the household charge. But I'd say that it's the tax base, the local tax base is still very narrow. We do try to increase that by getting new people to invest and new companies to come to try and increase the tax base. But that was the big issue we suggested to the Commission on Taxation.
If you were appointed a minister, what would you do to change the way that commercial taxes are being levied?
I wouldn't go that far. I would stick to what I said, that to try and see is there some way that we could expand it. Now, the Minister, to be fair, has announced a new property tax for next year. And that is the kind of initiative I think is necessary. I know it's going to be painful, but I think it has to be done. Really, since rates were abolished in 1977, and the Minister said this himself, nothing adequate has been put in place to replace them. And the new property tax will be certainly an attempt to do that.
Apart from commercial rates, what are the big challenges facing you today in the local authority?
Well, it's to, as I finish the projects that we're engaged in at the moment, and also to try and retain and maintain services to the local community at a time when our income is falling, let's be honest, and that people are going through a recession. But I think it would be the wrong option for us to try and cut back on local services. I think now is the time where we have to try and do what we can to ensure that the quality of local services that people in Wexford get are as good, if not better, than anywhere else in the country.
There's a myth out there that the local authority own an awful lot of buildings across the county that are empty, that could be rented to create an additional income stream for the local authority. Is there any truth behind that?
None at all, Karl. I mean, I can list the number of local authority buildings that we've got. The only one that's vacant at the moment that we own is in Glena Terrace, and there's a sale going through on that. The municipal buildings is vacant, all right, but that's been purchased by the OPW. I'm not aware of any other buildings out there that the council owns that are not letting.
You've recently taken ownership of the courthouses. What's happening with those?
Yes, so recently the court service has pulled out of Enniscorthy and Uross, and they've given us back the old courthouses. Yes, they could be they are vacant at the moment, but to relet them to anybody will require a massive amount of investment, and at the moment neither the court service nor the council has that money, so they're going to be vacant for a while.
What have you done to reduce the cost base within the local authority over the last number of years?
Well, we have our own internal efficiency review group here who's looked at every item of expenditure, because I mentioned if you couldn't increase rates and you couldn't cut back services, the only thing we could do was take costs out of the organisation itself to try and balance the books. We've reduced staff significantly. No contract staff many contract staff have been laid off, unfortunately, but it's what we had to do. The number of vacancies through natural retirements and that, none of those have been filled. So we're taking about 100 people out of the organisation at present. And then, as I say, we also look at every item of expenditure. The non-pay costs are looked at forensically. And we do present those findings to our own external audit committee, which is made up, of course, of 3 local businessmen who act as an external audit, and they provide invaluable assistance to us in this area.
During your tenure in the county manager position, you've invested heavily in in-town development. Where has the funding for this come from?
Well, thankfully none of that fell on the rates, because we just couldn't afford it. But what we do is we trawl through the public capital programme. We look at all the capital that the government has available to it. Organisations like Fault Ireland, thankfully, were given some serious capital funding recently, and we try to ensure that we got as much as possible of that money to invest in Wexford. And say the quayside development in Uross now has been provided. About 95% of that funding is coming from Fault Ireland. So the new library in Wexford Town, we're getting significant funding from that, from the Department of the Environment. So we look at every opportunity to try and get capital monies drawn down for Wexford to enhance the town centres in particular.
I know that there's 346 people working out of your new offices in Newtown. There were 346 people that, prior to that, worked in Wexford Town. So, consequently, retailers out there feel that the footfall has reduced. All of those people had spending power for lunches and to browse around shops at lunchtime and after work and that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the majority of those, of course, worked in the old county hall. And before we left the county hall, we had deals done with other agencies to move in. So, as we moved out, the entire old county hall is now populated by new agencies, and they're now creating the footfall that was there before we left. So it's fully let at the moment. There's no vacant space there.
Eddie, tell me about the group that has been formed by Wexford County Council with the objective of attracting new companies into setting up in County Wexford.
Well, a few years ago there we set up, the council established a new kind of interagency group, and we brought all the agencies together, such as Wexford Local Development, the Chamber of Commerce, Carlow IT, the County Enterprise Board, and the 2 enterprise centres in Enniscorthy and Wexford, to work with the IDA and Enterprise Ireland to position Wexford as an attractive location to try and get new businesses to come in.
And what have you done since the formation of that group?
Well, we've set up the website Wexford Means Business, which means that the name of Wexford is now there, gone viral all over the world. We've got testimonials from companies that have successfully located in Wexford to explain the attractiveness of the county and how successful it's been for them. We've also established, we've used the major Wexford names that have made Wexford famous to sell the name of the county at home and abroad. We have people like Anne Doyle of RTE, Kevin Doyle, the footballer, Michael Landra, the entertainer, Dermot O'Leary of the X Factor fame, John Banville of the Sea, Colm Tobin and Owen Colfer. I mean, these are international names now, and they're using their opportunities abroad to promote Wexford. I mean, you can even see Dermot O'Leary had a Wexford cheddar at his wedding last year. So, I mean, that was a big plus. That put the name Wexford out to a vast audience.
So they're certainly going to work as ambassadors for Wexford globally.
Oh, yes, they've agreed, thankfully, to give their time and their efforts to try and put something back. I think it's a marvellous contribution by them to try and see that their native county does better.
The IDA focus on attracting lots of different types of company into Ireland. What type of sectors do you think are ideally suited to locating in County Wexford?
Well, first of all, we have a very strong indigenous industrial base here, thankfully. I mean, people like Celtic Linen, Wexford Creamery, Kent's Aluminium, and more recently Sunru and Dundee, all operating out of Wexford. These are all fabulous success stories. We've tried to, rather than try and go for everything, we've tried to see what Wexford has performed well in the past, and certainly life sciences and the financial services sector has been a particularly good news story for Wexford. You have people like Lake Region in Uras, Clearstream in Enniscorthy, Waters Technologies here in Wexford, Medentech in Wexford, and more recently ABT Medical. I mean, this is forming a cluster in those life sciences area, and the industries tend to feed on one another. So if they see a successful company in their niche area, they tend to be attracted to it, and this is what the IDA now is trying to sell Wexford for. In financial services, we've been very lucky to attract Zurich, of course, and also BNI Mellon. And they will tell you that they're very satisfied with Wexford as a location, and this positive information is feeding into IDA and Enterprise Ireland. Hopefully, all that will bring about a positive response.
Eddie, the most recent win for the county in terms of an international brand was Coca-Cola locating in Drina in Wexford Town. Yes. Tell me about the journey that they went through before they arrived here.
Well, first of all, it was a marvellous achievement to get him here. I mean, international brand of that standing is a terrific advertisement for Wexford. We met the representative of Coca-Cola back in, a number of years before they actually set up here. At the time, we didn't even know it was Coca-Cola. But they wanted an attractive site. The IDA worked with them on that. They wanted an attractive location, obviously, and, we feel they couldn't have come to a better spot. They wanted access to the port for exports, to a port, and I think the Wexford ticked that box. They also wanted, not uniquely, but certainly very attractively in Ireland, they were impressed with the range of services that the local authority gave. We could deal with planning, we could deal with fire, we could deal with environmental issues, we could deal with water. That impressed them because that's not the model that they're used to. So although we didn't know they were impressed with this is what they told us after. Then, of course, the fact that we were only 2 hours from Dublin, and it just that it was. I think they just engaged as good corporate citizens from word go. They looked at the likes of the quality of life here. They were very impressed with the opera. They were impressed with the fact that a small provincial town like Wexford could have a world-class opera house, could have an opera that was of international standing. This impressed them. And they immediately engaged in that area. So I think that it was a good example of Wexford at its best. Now it was slow. Sometimes you'd wonder, was this company going to come at all? But in fact they did, and the feedback from them since has been very, very strong and very positive. And I know that they're saying this abroad. So I think that's been a real good news story, a real win-win for us.
How important is corporate social responsibility to these companies when deciding to locate in a county across the country, and what's the local authority doing to influence that?
Well, it's huge for them. I mean, particularly since the collapse of economies around the world, I think businesses, particularly large international major world leaders, realise that corporate citizenship is as important now as just giving employment. So they're engaging with communities wherever they're now setting up, and they realise that they have to become better embedded in communities and with communities and work with communities. So I think that's a new trend in capitalism. I mean, this new ideal of principled capitalism rather than just raw financial capitalism, I think is the way that it's going to go. And companies like Coca-Cola are leaders in the field in this area. So the fact that we had such opportunities for them, I think, and to demonstrate to them that a county like Wexford and a town like Wexford was also investing so much in its local community. I think that impressed them, and they were very, very quick to get involved. And they've been terrific corporate citizens ever since.
You've demonstrated that Wexford Local Authority works very, very closely with all of the other agencies across the county, from business to community related. What are you doing to work closely with other local authorities to benchmark yourself against them?
Well, we have the national service indicators, there's 42 service indicators which Wexford County Council has to demonstrate that we are at least as good or better than our competitor local authorities. So we've no access until they're published as to what the other local authorities are doing, but we trawl through those forensically and we look and see are there areas that we're falling down on, that we're not doing as well on. We contact those local authorities and see, look, what are you doing in that area? We're having difficulty, and we get advice. Similarly, local authorities come on to us in areas that we're performing well in, and we share that information, and I think it's a very, very valuable tool for us to have.
Eddie, one of the other criticisms is that you've granted planning permission for businesses to locate outside the town itself in satellite business parks, which has taken the anchor tenants and the life, in some cases, out of the town itself and has a detrimental effect on retailers within the town.
Yes, well, I've heard that myself, Karl, but in dealing with planning, we have to follow national planning guidelines, and certainly the retail planning guidelines for this country were centred around what's known as a sequential test, so that if a likes of a major store operator came to town, if he could demonstrate that there wasn't an adequate site that he could purchase for his needs in the town, then he was entitled to look at outside locations. And of course, many of the larger stores that have been built throughout Ireland, particularly during the boom years, certainly they were out of scale to centre town locations. So the needs of that developer couldn't be met a lot of the times in the centre, and therefore we were obliged to give planning permission for out of town. That was national policy, not only in Wexford but right across from Dublin City to Cork to Limerick, Galway, right throughout the county or the country. Now, as I said at the start earlier, one of the things we tried to do to counterbalance that was at least to ensure that the centre town areas were not let become disowned or unused, and therefore we've put enormous resources into building up our town centres. And funny now, with the recent trend in retail, as far as we can see, there's every opportunity and possibility that the day of the very large store and the very large out-of-town retail park is probably gone now, and people are re-looking at centre town areas, and hopefully that will correct that imbalance that developed over the last couple of years.
Eddie, I have to ask you, what's a typical day look like for yourself?
Well, I start early, I work hard. I come in the morning here, I clear my emails first, clear my post, probably contact the Cathaoirleach of the council or the mayor or some of the elected members. Some of them anyway will be on to me about issues. We're very, very active public representation in this county. Then deal with my own staff. I have a very strong management team here who have their own responsibilities which I've delegated to them, and I deal with them. There'll be issues that they will have to discuss with me and I with them. I will then probably be on to the department a number of times, the NRA, about projects in the county, maybe then have to head off to a meeting in Dublin. So the only thing wrong with my day, Karl, is just not enough hours in it.
Well, Eddie, it's been a very insightful interview, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for coming in and speaking to us this morning.
You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Think Wexford Insurances for your business insurance.